We've been talking about access to education, the importance of education, and what I want to talk to you about for the short time I've got to speak is the nature of that experience, the design of that experience, what impact it has on you, what impact it has on learners. And it's really a matter of design for me. And what I'd like to do to start is just look at the person next to you. Can you just have a look at the person next to you briefly? I want you to do that because this room is full of people who've been served incredibly well by education. People who've come away from education with a very positive mindset. You are talented people, valuing education and using your education wisely. Education doesn't do that for everybody. We're talking about education, and particularly those groups that don't participate in education, or when they do participate, are sort of reluctant participants in education. And I'm interested in how a learning experience can be designed to give people a positive mindset, to affirm them, to say I'm smart, to go into life with optimism and hope, to have aspirations, to actually want to make a difference to their life and their community. And we know that actually quite a lot of people don't leave education with that feeling. They can be demoralized, thinking actually education has taught me I'm not smart, learning's for those sorts of people, not for people like me. And I think that's the big challenge we've got. And we're talking about universities, but if we don't get it right at schools, if we don't lay the foundations at schools, it's too late. It doesn't matter. So that's where I'm going, really. And I want to explore design. And I'm going to do it by just showing you a short film for about a minute that captures some of the things I want to say. Get people to use the stairs. Pause it there. You get the idea. One of the things that I'm interested in is that's actually an advert for VW cars. And they employed architects to look at the environment, to say, if we change this environment, if we change it in some way, will it affect people's behaviors? Will they change? And through a whole series of changes to space, they did affect people's behaviors. 66% of people chose to use the stairs. And I want to get into this thing, is if you look at that positive and negative thing that we take from education, what can we do about the design of it to actually change behavior, to change engagement and make it more positive? One of the things about education is it's hugely resistant to change. You think about the way your jobs have changed as journalists in the last 10 or 15 years. The impact of the internet, the mixed media presentation of information, the 24/7 reporting of information, user-generated content. I mean, look what's happening now in the world. Lots of the stuff we see on TV is generated through mobile phones. And the way you use that shifts. Your role as a journalist through blogging is shifted. But education is hugely resistant to change. Many schools will ban the mobile phone. Many schools will take a whiteboard and use technology to reinforce almost this type of learning, yes? You sit and listen, I've got all the stuff and I'm going to tell you. Even look at the way they've used this room here with the computer room. What sort of experience is going to happen in that computer room? £45,000, I think, in that room. I don't know what that experience is going to do, but it looks a bit like a battery chicken farm to me. You will know that if you went into a classroom today, it'd be rather like the classroom you went in when you were at school. And I'm pretty old, and if I go into classrooms, and it's very similar. How do we organize time? Time is organized into 60-minute units, and a bell rings and we move on. Is that the way we learn? When do we have a week-long lesson, a day-long lesson? When do we have the 5-minute lesson? We've created a system, for example, that uses time in an incredibly unproductive way because it suits organizational needs. Think of the way we use people. Usually a teacher with 30 or 40 children. How often do we bring experts into the classroom? How often are we using technology to put us in touch with business people, with artists, with poets, with people on the other side of the world to show that learning has got some meaning? Learning is relevant to the world. How do we use space? How do we use new pedagogies? And I suppose the thing I want to talk about is how we can change what it means to be a learner and the paradigm of learning. We have had for too long a notion where many teachers see themselves as deliverers of curriculum, like postmen, delivering knowledge to kids, and kids see themselves as consumers. But the world has shifted. And my message is, can we start seeing ourselves as designers of learning? I've talked about designing learning. What does that mean when we train teachers, train university lecturers to see themselves not as transmitters or postmen, but designers of learning? And how do we get learners to see themselves as creative people, creating knowledge, creating solutions to problems? So my message is going to be about how do we promote innovation in a very conservative system. And I believe we need innovation in curricula, innovation in pedagogy, and innovation in assessment. So 3 or 4 quick slides just to sum up in a nutshell what they might be. All around 3 questions, fundamental questions around education. What are we trying to achieve through education? What's the best way to organize it? And how will we know it's working? Now, I don't believe that in education all we're doing is trying to find those kids and sift out the ones who are going to those top universities. And so that's what the purpose of education is. It certainly isn't. It is important we have those people at the cutting edge, but there's education has to serve the world in a far more positive way than just getting, the top elite into the top elite universities. And that debate needs to really be pushed forward a lot more. And we certainly, just from those flavors, we can organize learning in much better ways, and we can value the outcomes of learning differently. Not all learning is manifesting itself through get in a room, write an answer to a multiple choice question, or write an essay. There are far more ways to engage with this. So it's about curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. I'm not going to labor this. If we had a discussion now, how do we make this young person fit for the future? And if you do this with teachers, parents, employers, what they talk about most is a very old-fashioned thing, actually. Character. We need people who will be resilient, who will be enterprising, adaptable, who will act with integrity. Then they talk about literate people, people who can work in teams, people who can communicate and think well. And they say, oh yes, and knowledge, of course. They need to think like scientists and artists and those things. But if you think of the education system as a tree, this is the learning tree. We talk, don't we, about the branches of knowledge, what it is to be a scientist, an artist, and study humanities. And on that tree, these broad ways of thinking and doing things, there's loads of leaves. They're the lessons. Magnetism, the parts of a plant, the solar system, the Egyptians. And if you look at the resources available to schools, and you look at it, most of the things are about the leaves. Go online to anybody who offers lessons, they're about the leaves by and large, not deep thinking. And if you're anything like me, certainly when you get older, many of the leaves on my tree have fallen off. They have fallen off. And the reason I've been able to sustain myself in my life is because I've been able to develop, or by chance or whatever, got some deep roots of learning. And those deep roots of learning that will sustain us in life are the things that people recognize. They're about being enterprising, confident, having a can-do attitude, having a skill set. And I'd be saying, how well do we articulate these sorts of outcomes in the way we design learning? And we know we've got frameworks for competencies, but by and large, they just bolt on. We need to really change the way we design learning. Here's a quick taste of some of the things going on in some schools, because lots of schools are grabbing this, colleges are grabbing this, universities. Let's do more around design-based learning, where kids make, manufacture, prototype, change, adapt, modify, solve problems. Let's have campaign-based learning, when we look at a global issue and we make a change in our lives now. Not, let's learn from this book, so sometime in a distant future it'll pay us something back. Learning has to matter now. So there's a lot of pedagogies we could be embracing. New ways of assessing. We allow pilots to practice and get tested on flight simulators. It's good enough for that. Why are we not using technology to simulate real, authentic situations? Why are we saying get in that ball and right? Massive innovations required in education if we're going to make it attractive as a product for young people and to keep them involved in education and to make it worthwhile. Even our most able students will report that they feel they're placidly compliant. Placidly compliant. They know what they've got to do to jump through the hoop. They know what to do, but they're not being challenged. There's no real purpose. So there's a massive debate required. I'm going to end with this little quote, and I'd like to finish it. Standards in writing and mathematics are declining because young people are spending too much time. What are young people spending too much time doing? Somebody shout something out. They're spending too much time what? On Facebook? Playing computer games? Twittering? What are they spending too much time doing? I don't know. There's something wrong with young people. Look, this is how it actually ended. Listening to the gramophone, it's from 1912. Technology is not a problem. Technology is one of the solutions for making learning more attractive. Thanks for listening.